Hey everybody, do you have a car that's got CarPlay built into the infotainment system? You know, CarPlay is great. It's a nice, safe way to interact with your iPhone while you're driving down the road, but it seems like most manufacturers include only the wired version, so you've got to get this cable out and connect it to your phone every time you get into the car, and you've always got this tangled up and stuck in the middle of your console. It's a pain in the neck, even though wireless CarPlay has actually been a thing for quite some time now. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can convert a wired CarPlay system into one that is wireless. Let's get started. Here's the wireless adapter we'll be using today. It's from CarLinkKit and is available on Amazon. Now I want to stress that this is not a sponsored video and that I purchased the adapters I'll be demonstrating in this video with my own money. In fact, I bought one last year for my truck, and it's worked so well that I bought another one this year for my wife's new car. And I decided to go ahead and make this video to show the setup process, which can be a little bit tricky. Now, while this adapter is specifically an Apple CarPlay adapter, there are similar adapters available for Android Auto as well. I'll leave some links down in the description. In the box, we find the adapter itself, an instruction pamphlet, and a USB cable. Now note that this device uses the USB Type-C connection, so the cable that's connected is USB-C at one end and USB-A at the other end, which will usually be what your car needs. If your car has a USB-C connection for CarPlay, you'll need to purchase a separate cable that's USB-C at both ends. Let me briefly tell you what I really love about this specific adapter. There's no real hassle with it. There's no cords to connect. There's no mess in my car. I can just get in and start driving and CarPlay just works. This allows me to keep my phone in my pocket or in the center console while I'm driving, which is much safer. This device works pretty reliably. Every once in a while I'll have to unplug and replug the device, but this only really seems to be after a system update to the infotainment system in my car. And I've been impressed with the audio quality. It seems, to my ear at least, to be the same as when the phone is wired. There are a couple of downsides to mention as well. The first is that sometimes the adapter will connect to the wrong phone. For instance, if my wife and I both get in my truck to go somewhere, sometimes it will connect to her phone instead of to mine. This doesn't bother us that much and is easy to fix by just turning off Bluetooth on the phone we don't want it to connect to. And the second downside to mention is that these can be just a little bit pricey. I paid around $100 each for the two that I've purchased. Now, getting this hooked up and connected to your car is really simple. On the top, you'll find this little port right here. That's a USB-C port. We'll go ahead and plug in the USB-C end of the cable that it came with into that port. And then I'm going to plug the other end into my car. Now, if your car only uses USB-C ports for the other end of the connection, you'll need to get another USB-C to USB-C cable. This is USB-C to USB-A. Go ahead and pop this down in here and plug it in where I'd normally plug in my phone. And that's all there is to it, to the connections. With the device connected to the car, now we can go ahead and turn on the ignition of the car. And after the infotainment system has sort of booted up, it should start the connection process for us. Now, the first thing that you're going to see with the connection to the CarPlay adapter is this screen here, which is basically saying, hey, I'm broadcasting a Bluetooth signal, and I need you to connect your phone to whatever's in the red box. Now, in my case, that red box is for a Nissan because that's the kind of car that I'm in, but that will vary depending on what kind of car you're doing this on. So, grab your phone, go into the settings, go into the Bluetooth settings, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, there should be an item there that says the name that's in here, and I've found it there at the bottom of the list. So when I tap on that, it should pair to the device, and then it should go into this connecting screen, and on my phone it's going to ask if I want to use CarPlay. I'm going to say yes to that, and that should be all I need to do on my phone. I can set it aside, and within a few seconds, it's connected to the CarPlay interface. And I can use it just like I would use CarPlay if my phone was wired, even though my phone is now turned off, has no wires connected to it, and is set out of the way. So I can go into my music, for instance, and I could press play here, and we could listen to some nice royalty-free music. If your car has a voice assistant button on the steering wheel for hands-free use of your CarPlay, it likely will work just right out of the box with no extra configuration required. This one does happen to have a button like that. Hey, what's the temperature going to be today?
The high temperature today will be 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
So now that we've got this connected and CarPlay seems to be working properly, the next thing I recommend that you do is upgrade the firmware on that little adapter. Now this is done in Safari in the web browser on your phone. I'll go ahead and open up Safari here. And we're going to go to a special website that's just numbers. It's 192 period 168 period 50 period 2. It's 192.168.50.2. And we'll go ahead and go to that website. When you get there, you may see that it says it is the latest version. In fact, if we reload, it keeps saying it is the latest version. However, if you hit the Check for Updates button, you'll find it has discovered a new version. So now I'll hit Update Now, and we'll get some messages that are in Chinese that you can't actually read, but it's doing the upgrade. Now, as it's doing this, you'll see it's going to disconnect from CarPlay and do the upgrade on the device, of course. And one other thing to mention here is sometimes these ship with a version of the firmware that is 2 or 3 versions old. So you may wind up needing to do this upgrade 2 or 3 times because every time it upgrades, it only goes to the next newest. And so you may have 3 or 4 versions that you've got to upgrade. So it says the upgrade was successful. After a little bit of time, this will power back up. I can reconnect to it, and I can check for upgrades one more time. It has discovered a new version, and now I can update now. So I'm going to need to go through this process at least a couple of times, it looks like, on this particular version. And as I said, the device you receive when you order this may have a newer or an older version of the firmware. Just keep going and keep checking until it absolutely says you don't have any upgrades available. I've performed a couple of updates, and now when I go to the same website, the screen looks a lot different. It lists the kind of car that I'm in and that sort of thing, but now there's still a Check Update button, and even in this screen, there's a new update available. So I'm going to go ahead and click Update, and we'll just keep doing this until we can't find any more updates. Now, while the update is happening, the light on the device is going to blink red and green. Make sure you don't disconnect it from the car while it's doing this upgrade. You don't want to lose power to the device, or you may wind up with a problem where the firmware didn't load correctly, and I'm not sure how to fix that. So make sure you just leave it plugged in while it's doing the upgrades. All right, we're several updates in. I'm going to check for update once more. Already the latest version. Okay, cool. It looks like I've completely updated it. So I'm finished with all of the setup and upgrades and everything. I can just tuck this little device out of my way where it won't interfere with me being able to drive and safely use the car, and Apple CarPlay should automatically load every single time I start up and drive away in my car. Now, many of you may be wondering, just how long does this system take to establish its connection to your phone and to show up on your infotainment system? It's going to be a pain in the neck if this takes a couple of minutes to connect every time I get in my car, right? Well, it doesn't take that long at all. The car's been off for a few minutes. Here's my phone. You can see I'm not connected to anything. I'm going to turn it off and put it into the center console here so it's out of the way. And we'll go ahead and just start the car like I normally would, and we'll see how long the system takes to connect. Now, this will vary a little bit depending on what kind of car you've got. This has a little menuing system that takes a little bit of time to get started. But once it's going, it's only a few seconds between when it's finished starting up and when the CarPlay starts to connect and starts working. So the infotainment system's fully booted now, and it is connecting to the CarPlay device, and give it one more second here. And there's my CarPlay interface. So as you can see, it does take a little bit of time, but it doesn't take forever. About the time you're backing out of your garage or rolling down your driveway is when this will come up, and you can start telling it to turn on your music or play your podcasts or whatever navigation aids you might need. Now, one thing I should point out here is that while most of the functions of CarPlay work really, really well, for instance, you can move back and forth through things really quickly, and looking up places to go on the maps and etc. all works really, really well. There is a delay when you're starting and stopping audio streams. So if you're listening to a podcast or listening to some music, there's a little bit of a delay between play and pause. So I'm going to press pause right now. And you'll notice it takes a couple of seconds for the music to stop playing. And if I press play, it's going to take another couple of seconds, 2 to 3, for it to start playing again. Now, this isn't a deal breaker for me, but I wanted to mention it in case it's going to be something that bothers you. There is one final thing I just want to mention. When you're shopping for these things, you'll find that they sell them under a bunch of different listings on Amazon. They'll say this one's for Nissan, and this one's for BMW, and this other one's for Ford, or this one's Gen 2, or this one's Gen 1, and this one's the new updated version, and this one's the old version. They're all exactly the same thing. This one in this hand I bought last year for my truck, and it claimed to be version 1 and claimed to only be working with Volkswagens, but it was the cheapest one. It was cheaper by about 10 bucks than the one that was for Fords. But this one, on my other hand, is the one I just bought for the car that we have for my wife. And this one is exactly the same thing. It claimed to be generation 2, but the boxes are exactly the same. In fact, I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera, but right on the very, very front, it does list the model number, and the model numbers on both of them are completely identical. It says CPC 200-U2W+. And again, I bought one last year claiming to be version 1 for a different make of car, and the one in my right hand I bought just recently for yet a different car claiming to be the new upgraded version. But they are completely identical. And they work completely the same way. As far as I can only tell, the actual difference, the only real difference, is that this one here that is supposedly the newer version came with a slightly newer firmware loaded on it already. But as I showed you earlier, just make sure you get the latest firmware, and then these two things work identically. Well, that's about all there is to it to install this wireless CarPlay kit, which will allow you to convert a wired infotainment system for CarPlay into a wireless one. Now, this has some great benefits, like you'll be able to get rid of these wires. They won't clutter up your center console anymore. Plus, when you get in the car, instead of plugging in your phone and putting it somewhere you might be tempted to pick it up and use it, you'll be able to put it away somewhere safe where it'll stay out of sight and just a little bit more out of mind. Using CarPlay is safer for interacting with your iPhone while you're driving anyway. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and maybe learned a little something. If you did, you can give me a thumbs up down below. If you've got any suggestions or comments for how I could have done this better or differently, I'd love to hear about that down in the comments section down below. And if you want to see more content like this, of course, you can think about subscribing, but there's never any pressure there from me, of course. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I don't know what to do now. Should I get out? I guess I'll get out. Change your wired CarPlay into someone. I was so close! 2 words away! Something wireless. Ah! Try again. CarPlay infotainment system into a wireless one. And I can't remember what I was going to say, so we'll start again. Infotainment system into a wireless one. And that's line. Oh, wait, there's no one here giving me lines. It's just me. It was good. Okay, the end. I'm done. Am I done? I'm done.